Hey everyone, this is Ben, and it's really good to see all of you. So I actually am excited to speak today on one of my favorite pieces of the Gospels, and it's really a privilege to get to talk to you guys about it. And so we are in Mark 2, verses 1 through 12, and this is a story of Jesus healing a man with paralysis. And essentially, to give you a little synopsis, Jesus is just hanging out in this house, and it is so crowded that people can hardly move. There's no entryway into this house and no way to go see him directly. And so these four friends bring their friend who's paralyzed through the roof and into this house, and they lay him down to be healed by Jesus, and Jesus says, "Your sins are forgiven." And the scribes and Pharisees are like, "Whoa, but who other than God can forgive sins? Like, who does this guy think he is?" And then he says in verse 8 through 9, "Why do you question these things in your hearts? Which is easier, to say to the paralytic, 'Your sins are forgiven,' or to say, 'Rise up, take your bed and walk'?" Which is just an ultimate clapback by Jesus, first of all, because he backs it up by proving that he has the power to heal him as well, right after, by saying, "Take up your mat and walk." And he walks away, and everyone is just amazed. And it concludes by everyone glorified God, saying, "We never saw anything like this." So it's a pretty cool story. And I can't help but think about, I think if I or one of my friends was paralyzed, I would totally not be one of those people that's like willing to risk enough to go through a roof for them, which is a conviction of myself and reminds me of just how many great friends I have, first of all. But I want to hone in especially on a couple of things in why it is Jesus initially said, "Your sins are forgiven," instead of just immediately saying, "Rise up, take your bed and walk." So a couple of things that I think are really cool and important to know about this is that, one, as you can see where the scribes and Pharisees say, "Who is this? He's blaspheming. Only God can forgive sins." Jesus is saying pretty definitively that he is God, which is a really cool and intense and serious claim, and which he backs up by proving his strength and his abilities and visibly by healing the man. And I can't help but think about this passage and think about the friends of the man who was paralyzed, and them saying, like, if I was in that room and I was one of those friends who brought him all the way there, I would have been like, "Hey, Jesus, like, he's paralyzed. Can we get a little help with that as well? We don't know how we're going to get out otherwise," probably another thought. But Jesus emphasizes forgiveness. And I think that's something really important to remember as we are now, as Paul tells us in Colossians, to focus on things that are above and not things of the earth. That doesn't mean to ignore things that are on the earth or not care about them, but it does mean to set your heart and focus on the Lord. And it's really easy to be praying to God right now and saying, "Hey, God, but my sins are forgiven, but what about the pandemic? What about school? What about everything I'm missing? What about my friends?" And it's important to care about that stuff. But it's also equally important to engage in and appreciate the grace of the Lord. And that's something to celebrate, and is something to bring peace as well as something to simply focus on in this time. But I hope to see you guys soon.